She says she wants love, real love, the kind that feels safe, steady, lasting. She talks about loyalty, about wanting peace, about how tired she is of the games. So you believe her. You listen. You show up. You treat her gently. You give her exactly what she said she wanted, and then she pulls away. Suddenly she's distant. Short replies, delayed responses, no more warmth in her voice. You ask what's wrong. She says, I don't know. I just need space. A week later, she's back with the man who treated her like an afterthought. You see her smile at him, laugh with him, post about him, the same man she cried over, the one who gave her nothing, yet holds her entire attention. You think, what did I do wrong? Why do women push away the very thing they ask for? Why does it feel like being kind makes you invisible? So you try harder. You send long messages. You open up more. You explain yourself, your heart, your intentions. But nothing works. You assume she's confused, that she's damaged, that she doesn't know what she wants. But what if I told you? She knows exactly what she wants. She just can't admit it. Because she's not confused. She's in conflict. Not with you, with herself. There's a war happening inside her mind, and most women don't even realize it. A war between two forces that pull her in opposite directions. And Freud saw it long before Tinder, long before Instagram, long before modern dating ever existed. He studied the female mind not through what women said, but through what they did, through the contradictions, the patterns, the unspoken chaos behind every soft smile. And here's what he discovered. The female psyche isn't just emotional, it's divided. One part craves pleasure, surrender, power. It's ancient, primal, fearless. It's the part of her that wants to be led, even dominated, by a man who doesn't chase her emotions. But then, there's another part, the one that was shaped by her parents, by her culture, by shame, guilt, fear. The part that whispers, don't want too much, don't need too deeply, stay in control. And caught in the middle of those voices is you. You, the man who shows up. You, the man who gives her calm instead of chaos. You, the man who listens, protects, respects. You're not being rejected. You're being weighed against her unconscious survival system. Because to her mind, love doesn't feel like safety. It feels like danger. Not because you are dangerous, but because what you offer, consistency, presence, emotional truth, is something she never learned how to receive. That's why Freud said, much of our behavior is driven by unconscious forces, far more than we dare admit. He left us a map, but no one listened. Why? Because what he uncovered was darker than a society was ready to hear, darker than romance, darker than Disney, darker than most men are willing to believe. And yet, if you've ever been ghosted by a woman who claims she loved you, if you've ever been pushed away after showing up the right way, if you've ever felt invisible the moment you stop being a challenge, then deep down you already know, this isn't random, this isn't your fault, and this isn't about love, it's about psychology. It's about a split inside her mind that you cannot fix, but you must understand. And once you understand it, you become untouchable because the man who knows this map doesn't get played by emotional confusion. He sees the terrain for what it is. Let's walk it together. Stage 1, the split between her desires and her morals. At the core of every woman, there's a fracture, not because she's broken, but because she's divided. Freud saw this clearly. He said that inside each human being lives a battle, but in women that battle is sharper, deeper, harder to admit. Because it's not just emotional, it's biological versus cultural. On one side is her ID, the raw part of her, the part that wants, that craves intensity, dominance, pleasure, surrender. The part that feels alive when a man walks into the room and doesn't flinch at her chaos. This part doesn't care if he's polite or emotionally available. It only cares if he's strong enough to bend her energy without needing to raise his voice. But on the other side is her superego, the voice that tells her, be good, don't feel that. That's not safe. That's not feminine. That's not love. This is the voice of her parents, her teachers, her past. It's the part trained to keep her in control, even if it means being unfulfilled. So when she feels real desire, the kind that bypasses logic and hits her body like fire, her mind panics. The superego tries to put that fire out. It judges it, labels it toxic, tries to shame it into silence. And what you're left with is a woman who feels one thing, but acts like another. She says she wants peace, but she chases storms. She says she wants a kind man, but obsesses over the one who disappears. She says she's tired of games, but punishes the man who plays none. You think she's playing. She's not. She's living in a contradiction, and most women don't even know they're doing it. Her ego, the middle ground between her craving and her conscience, is exhausted because it's constantly trying to negotiate peace between two enemies living inside her. This is why she's drawn to the man who doesn't explain himself, who doesn't try to fix her confusion, who doesn't chase her mood, because her ID doesn't want harmony. It wants polarity. It wants to feel a presence that's immovable. It wants to feel claimed, not catered to. Not because she's weak, but because her feminine doesn't bloom in control. It blooms in surrender. But here's the paradox. The moment she feels that urge to surrender, her superego sounds the alarm. You'll lose yourself. He'll control you. Be careful. Stay in charge. And suddenly, the warmth she gave you turns cold. She pulls away. She tells herself she was wrong about you. But deep down, it wasn't you she feared. It was what you awakened. That's what Freud meant when he said, most people do not really want freedom because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. Desire is freedom, but it also demands surrender, and surrender terrifies her. So the next time a woman pushes you away after pulling you in, don't just see it as rejection. See it as a system conflict. Her ID wants you. Her superego fears what you represent. And unless you understand that split, you'll keep personalizing her confusion and punishing yourself for her inner war. Stage 2. Silence isn't rejection. It's self-protection. She doesn't reply. She leaves your message on read. She used to laugh at your jokes. Now she's flat, not angry, not cruel, just distant. You feel it, that shift, and your mind spirals. What did I do wrong? Was I too available? Should I pull back too? But you're asking the wrong questions, because this silence isn't about you. It's about her. And more importantly, it's about what you triggered in her nervous system. Freud didn't see silence as absence. He saw it as defense, the unconscious pulling the emergency brake. When a woman feels real connection, not attention, not flattery, but presence, something deep inside her starts to shake. And here's why. Her id lights up. He sees me. I want this. But her superego starts screaming. This feels dangerous. Why? Because love, real love, is not predictable. And a woman raised on emotional uncertainty doesn't feel safe when things feel calm. She feels safe when she's in control, when she has the upper hand, when her heart is locked behind performance. But you showed up with stillness. You didn't flinch. You didn't overcompensate. You didn't try to impress. You just were. And that scared her. Not because you were wrong, but because you were different. Because deep down, most women carry a version of themselves they've never let anyone meet. The soft one, the trusting one, the surrendered one. And when you make her feel that version awakening, her defense system kicks in. She disappears. She pauses. She needs space. But it's not space she needs. It's distance from herself. Freud believed that many people repress what they can't explain and what they can't control. Your presence, your masculinity, your calm, your truth. It made her feel exposed, like you saw through the noise, like you weren't trying to earn her. You were observing her, And that's what made her nervous. You didn't chase her ego. You saw her essence. And that kind of attention, it unlocks women who were never taught how to receive it. So what does she do? She ghosts, not to punish you, but to regain control of a feeling she wasn't prepared for. That's why her silence doesn't mean she lost interest. It means you got too close to the part of her that still doesn't trust love. She may say she wants a man who's available, but the moment you offer availability without anxiety, she freezes. Because that silence isn't rejection, it's self-protection. It's her unconscious saying, back away before you fall in too deep. Don't make the same mistake again. Don't get hurt. And that's the irony. The woman who disappears after real connection is usually the one who felt the most. But until she's healed that internal threat system, she'll keep pulling away from the very thing she says she wants. So don't chase her silence. Don't analyze every word. Don't shrink just to feel chosen again. See it for what it is, a mind trying to survive, and a heart trying to stay hidden. And your job isn't to decode it, it's to remain rooted. Because her silence was never about your worth, it was about what your presence awakened and what she wasn't ready to face. Stage 3. The chaos she creates is her way of testing reality. She says she wants peace, but starts an argument out of nowhere. She says she loves your calmness, but accuses you of being distant. She says, you're too perfect, it's suspicious. And you're left wondering, where is this coming from? I thought we were doing fine. Why does she feel like a storm I didn't see coming? Here's the answer Freud understood long before most modern men ever caught on. When a woman doesn't feel safe in her own mind, she tests yours. Because love, real love, makes her feel vulnerable. And vulnerability to the unhealed feminine feels like danger. So instead of surrendering to what feels good, she tries to destroy it first, not consciously, not because she wants to lose you, but because she needs to know one thing. Can your frame survive my chaos? This is the test, and most men fail, because she doesn't ask this question with words. She asks it with emotional disruption. Suddenly she picks a fight. She goes cold for no reason. She accuses you of things that sound insane. She flips the script just to watch your reaction. And if you react emotionally, if you raise your voice, if you start defending yourself, if you spiral with her, you've already lost. Because in that moment, her unconscious mind registers weakness. And it whispers, he can't hold me. He can't contain what I haven't learned to contain in myself. But if you don't flinch, if you breathe instead of battle, if you stay still while her emotions storm, something powerful happens. She feels safe, not because you chased peace, but because you embodied it. Freud saw these emotional outbursts not as manipulation, but as survival tactics developed early in life. If she was raised in chaos, she doesn't trust calm. If she grew up around emotional inconsistency, then consistency makes her suspicious. So she tests you, not to break you, but to see if you'll bend, because the feminine only trusts what it cannot move. And if your mood, your words, your energy all shift when she applies pressure, you've proven to her that her emotional instability is stronger than your masculine presence. Most men don't know this. They take the bait, they explain, they chase, they apologize for a crime they didn't commit, and she loses respect, even if she doesn't know why. Because what her truly wants is a man who cannot be pulled into her storm. A man who becomes even calmer when tested. A man who doesn't react to the chaos. He contains it. So when she spirals next time, don't match her energy. Don't play defense. Don't collapse into her frame. Hold yours. Because the man who can meet her chaos with quiet power, that's the man she won't forget. Stage 4. Peace feels boring to the traumatized feminine. You gave her everything she asked for. Kindness, stability, consistency. You didn't yell. You didn't chase. You didn't play games. And yet, she started pulling away. The calls became shorter, the texts less frequent, the excitement faded, and in your mind you're thinking, I treated her right. I made her feel safe. Why does it feel like I'm being punished for it? Because in a logical world, love should reward peace. But in the unconscious mind of a woman raised in chaos, Peace feels unfamiliar, and what's unfamiliar feels unsafe. Freud understood this deeply. He believed we don't chase what's good for us. We chase what feels familiar. And if a woman was raised in emotional volatility, in hot and cold parenting, inconsistent affection, passive-aggressive tension, then calmness doesn't register as safety. It registers as emptiness. So when you offer her steady presence, her trauma says, "This feels too quiet, too calm. Something must be wrong." Her nervous system isn't wired to relax in your peace. It's wired to anticipate pain, to scan for betrayal, to prepare for the moment it all collapses, even if there's no evidence that it will. That's why she picks fights when things are going well. That's why she overthinks when you're simply being still. That's why your silence makes her more anxious than a man who screams. Because when all she's ever known is emotional survival, your presence feels like a foreign language. And here's where most men make the mistake. They interpret her detachment as rejection, and then they overcorrect. They start chasing again, trying harder, giving more than she asked for, just to re-spark her interest. But in doing that, you abandon your own center. You reward the very instability that pushed her away, and she loses attraction, not because you weren't enough, but because you became unstable, trying to keep her interested. Freud called this repetition compulsion, the drive to recreate old wounds in new people, not to heal them, but because pain feels familiar, and familiarity feels safe. So when you show up fully calm, fully masculine, fully present, you become a mirror, not just for her desires, but for her dysfunction. And if she hasn't healed what made chaos feel like home, she'll sabotage the peace you bring, not because you failed, but because her body isn't used to being loved without fear. So what do? You don't shrink, you don't chase, you don't perform for her attention. You stay still, because your job isn't to make her feel comfortable in your peace. It's to remain peaceful, even when she can't yet receive it. And if she's meant to rise to that energy, she will. But if she needs drama to feel alive, let her go. You're not here to audition for a broken love story. You're here to embody the kind of presence that doesn't need validation to feel real. Stage 5. You're not chasing her, you're chasing a wound. She goes cold, starts pulling back. You can feel her slipping, and something inside you panics. Not because she's gone, but because something about that silence feels familiar. So you start chasing, not with your body, but with your value. You try harder. You open up more. You say things to prove you're safe, kind, different, and you don't realize it yet. But at that moment, Juan, you've lost yourself. Not because you love her, but because her distance reactivated something deep inside of you. Freud understood this before attachment style became a TikTok trend. He said most adult behavior is just childhood pain in disguise, and what we call love is often an unconscious repetition of the love we never got. That means you're not chasing her. You're chasing the moment your mother looked away. You're chasing the father who was never emotionally present. You're chasing the hope that this time, if you love hard enough, someone will finally stay. But here's the brutal truth. You're not attracted to her. You're addicted to the feeling of trying to matter, and she doesn't need to say a word, because her silence becomes the same silence you felt when you cried in a room and no one came. That's why when she pulls away, your stomach drops, not because she's the one, but because your nervous system is reliving abandonment. You think, if I can just get her to love me, I'll finally be enough. But that was never her job, and that wasn't love. That was a wound wearing perfume. Freud called this displacement, when you project your unresolved pain onto someone else, hoping they'll fix it. But no woman can fix what your inner child is still grieving. And here's where it gets dangerous. The more emotionally unavailable she becomes, the more valuable she feels. Not because she's rare, but because your brain is wired to equate absence with importance. So you stay longer, try harder, sink deeper, and the entire time, you're not loving her. You're just trying to prove your worth to a ghost. That's why it hurts so bad. Not because she rejected you, but because she mirrored the exact wound you've been running from your whole life. Freud would say, you're not losing a woman. You're reliving the moment you lost yourself. So here's the truth. Until you stop associating emotional starvation with love, you will keep chasing women who feed you crumbs and make you believe it's a feast. You'll keep calling it chemistry. But what it really is chaos that feels familiar. And that's not love. That's captivity. You don't rise by convincing her you're worth it. You rise by realizing you always were. Stage 6. She calls you toxic because she craves your power. She says you're too much, too cold, too confident, too direct. She says, I could never be with a man like you. But she can't stop watching. She lingers, circles, texts you when you pull away, watches your stories, but never replies to your messages. And you start to wonder, if she doesn't like me, why is she still here? Here's the uncomfortable truth Freud understood long before toxic masculinity became a buzzword. Sometimes, what she condemns with her words is the same thing her body craves without permission. This isn't game playing. This isn't lying. This is reaction formation, a Freudian defense mechanism where people express the opposite of what they truly feel, because the truth is too uncomfortable to accept. She calls you controlling, but she melts when a man leads. She says she wants emotional softness, but obsesses over the man who never validates her. She shames dominance, but her deepest fantasies revolve around it. Why? Because she's not at war with you. She's at war with her own biology. Freud believed that beneath every reaction, there's a truth being repressed, usually because it doesn't fit her identity or the image she was trained to maintain. Maybe she was raised by a weak father. Maybe she had a controlling one. Maybe her mother taught her never to rely on men. Or maybe the world told her being a strong woman meant killing her need to surrender. So now as an adult, she wants polarity. She needs masculine dominance. But she doesn't know how to receive it without feeling ashamed. So she attacks it. She critiques it. She puts labels on it. Not because you're actually toxic, but because the version of her that feels safe under masculine leadership was never allowed to exist. And here's where most men go wrong. You start defending yourself. You try to prove you're not what she says. You soften. You explain. You try to become safe. And in doing so, you kill the exact energy her body was drawn to in the first place. Because the feminine doesn't trust a man who flinches under pressure. It doesn't matter how kind you are, how logical, how emotionally available. If she can control you with shame, she will never feel safe enough to surrender to you with trust. That's why Freud said, we are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love. To her unconscious mind, loving a powerful man means risking herself. And if she hasn't healed her trauma around love and power, she will try to destroy the man who holds both. So when she attacks your masculinity, don't collapse. Don't justify. Don't chase validation through softness. Hold your frame. Because what she's saying with her mouth is often the opposite of what she's asking for with her energy. She wants to feel your strength, not your apology. She wants to feel your calm, not your defense. She wants to know that even if she calls you dangerous, you don't flinch, because the man who doesn't need to explain himself is the one who already knows who he is. Final stage. You're not here to understand her. You're here to master you. By now you've probably realized she was never the point, not her silence, not her chaos, not her games, not even her beauty. She was the mirror, and you were the one still bleeding. You kept chasing her clarity, kept hoping for her to come back, kept believing if you just loved harder, waited longer, explained better, she'd choose you. But you weren't chasing love. You were chasing relief, relief from your own emptiness. Freud said that the unconscious mind repeats what it never resolved. And until you break that cycle, you will keep calling dysfunction destiny. That's why she felt familiar. That's why the pain felt important. Not because she was special, but because your trauma had a familiar rhythm. And she matched it. But now here's where you choose. You either keep trying to understand her, or you master you, because she was never the reward. She was the trigger. And the game ends the moment you realize you don't need her to text back. You don't need her to validate your worth. You don't need to win her. You need to return to your center. The strongest men aren't the ones who figured women out. They're the ones who stopped abandoning themselves to earn affection. They stopped performing, stopped explaining, stopped waiting for a woman to validate their softness before reclaiming their strength. You are not here to be chosen by someone who hasn't chosen themselves. You are not here to make chaos feel safe. You are not here to negotiate your masculinity with a woman trained to fear it. You are here to become unshakable. Freud gave you the map. He told you where the war was. But the truth is, it was never your job to fight it, because real masculine power doesn't enter her mind to fix her. It holds its frame and lets her meet it. And if she can't, you walk, not with resentment, not with ego, but with sacred stillness. Because the most dangerous man in the world is the one who no longer chases what wounds him.